We'll hear argument next in Case 10-1293, Federal Communications Commission versus Fox Television Stations.
But, General Verrilli, it seems to me that this contract notion of yours can only go so far. I mean, if the idea is just we gave them something, now they have to do whatever we say, you wouldn't accept that. So the question is, why is this condition appropriate when many other conditions would not be appropriate? I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. If you would say all conditions are appropriate, but I frankly think you wouldn't.
General Verrilli, I took it from the briefs and what the FCC has been doing that the major objection is that one cannot tell what's indecent and what isn't, that it's FCC, the censor, that's saying Private Ryan is okay, Schindler's List is okay, but NYPD Blues is not. And I do think that that is the major objection, that we have a government agency that is going to make decisions about when nudity is okay and when it isn't. You can't do it in terms of time because New York, the NYPD was 7 seconds, and another broadcast, Catch 22, was 40 seconds. So it's the appearance of arbitrariness about how the FCC is defining indecency in concrete situations. That, I think, is the major.
Could you digress for 1 minute to help me understand the procedural posture of this case? When it was here last time, we were dealing with an issue called fleeting expletives, and that was Fox. And the Fox case involved just that. They didn't really, or we didn't, or the court didn't, attack the 2001 order, which is now at issue. And then, without it going back to the commission, the Second Circuit decided that on a ground that sets aside the 2001 order. Now, can we here just decide the fleeting expletive case? Because the fleeting expletive case has to do with one subset of applications of the 2001 order, and it has to do with Part 2.2 or something. I mean, it has, and how you interpret the words material dwells on or repeats. Now, that I understand how to get at.
The Commission said, and this is at page 137A of the appendix to the petition, that it's impossible to believe that they didn't think that the naked display of buttocks would bring them within, that they didn't have fair notice that the naked display of buttocks would bring them within this rule. I'm not sure anything more needs to be said about that. The fact of the matter is, and I think everybody, all of us understand this in our experience, that nudity on broadcast television is an exceedingly, exceedingly rare thing in any time of the day, and certainly between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. It is exceedingly rare, and all of us from our experience know that. And
if they did an excerpt from Hair, could they televise that?
I think it would raise serious questions. I think nudity is going to raise very serious questions.
In the opera, the Metropolis case, there's a scene where a woman is seen nude entering a bathtub. And suppose that were shown in that scene from the opera.
What will happen when we get to the point when there are only a handful of people in the entire country who are still receiving television programs via the airwaves?
And we certainly agree, Justice Scalia, with the point that was made in the Court's previous decision in this case that, for example, the words that are in the Fox broadcasts, teachers don't use those words with students. You don't hear those words in churches or synagogues. There are many, many contexts.
Well, you do more and more. You do more and more since there's so much of it on.
And I do
but
think, if I may,
you are saying that the standard can still be symbolic, as Justice Scalia said. We want the King's English when the very children we're talking about, when they go on the street, when their big brother says something to them. It is the words that were the expletives are in common parlance today. I mean, it is. I think that children the children are not going to be shocked by them the way they might have been a generation ago.
First of all, the idea that it, quote, worked, it worked perfectly fine from all the way up until 2001, even I would say until 2004, when the Commission wildly changed its approach. And it's only become dysfunctional since 2004. And as we sit here today, literally facing thousands and thousands of ginned up, computer-generated complaints that are holding up literally hundreds of TV license renewals, so that the whole system has come to a screeching halt because of the difficulty of trying to resolve these issues. So to say that the system is working well, it seems to me, at least from the broadcaster's perspective, is to suggest that's just not true. Accessible to TV.
That cuts both ways. People who want to watch broadcasts where these words or expose their children to broadcasts where these words are used, where there is nudity, there are 800 channels where they can go for that. All we're asking for, what the government is asking for, is a few channels where you can say, they're not going to hear the S word, the F word. They're not going to see nudity. So the proliferation of other media, it seems to me, cuts against you.
Well, if we rule in your favor on the First Amendment grounds, what will people who watch Fox be seeing between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m.? Are they going to be seeing a lot of people parading around in the nude and a stream of expletives?
What Fox was penalized for with two women on television who basically used a fleeting expletive, which seems to be naturally part of their vocabulary. And
that's not really clear. I mean, if you want us to be really clear, you should ask the FCC to simply outlaw any fleeting use of the F word, of the S word, any shots of any nudity in any movie, buttocks included. That'd give you all of the notice that you need. Why don't you propose that? Boy, that's certain as can be.
Well, broadcast TV is living on borrowed time. It's not going to be long before it goes the way of vinyl records and 8-track tapes.
I hope that I'm sure my client's not thrilled to hear you say
Well,
that.
no, I'm sure. I'm sure your clients will continue to make billions of dollars on their programs, which are transmitted by cable and by satellite and by internet. But to the extent that they're making money from people who are using rabbit ears, that's disappearing. Do you disagree with that?
A regime in which government officials decide years after the fact that 7 seconds of rear nudity in this particular episode of NYPD Blue is indecent, but 40 seconds of nudity, including full frontal nudity in Catch-22, is not, that expletives in a documentary about blues musicians is indecent, but even more of those expletives in a fictional movie about World War II is not, is constitutionally intolerable.